my recollection is that you learned about orchids from Jim Howard. Is that right?
Sort of, yeah.
Well, how else if not about from him?
Well, I mean, he gave me some orchids, and then I started growing them, and then he told me how to grow them.
Oh, he did tell you how to grow them?
Yeah.
So he sort of knew that?
Yeah.
How did he find out about them?
Pardon?
How did Jim find out about them?
Well, he was a plant pathologist.
Oh, that's right. That's what he did in school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So was that like, what year was that, about 52, when you guys first started?
51, like.
Oh, so it was the year you guys got married?
Right after we bought the house when we got married.
Uh-huh.
And as soon as we got married and got organized, I realized it wasn't landscaped at all.
Uh-huh.
So I decided I knew about how to propagate plants and stuff.
Uh-huh.
So I would build a small greenhouse and propagate all the plants to plant out.
And what kind of a small greenhouse did you? Was that the last house or was that a real greenhouse?
No, it was a real greenhouse.
Okay. And how did you? What was it made? I mean, did you build it yourself or did you hire somebody?
I built it myself.
Oh my gosh.
It was the strongest greenhouse that was ever built.
Was it glass or plastic or?
Yeah, somebody tore down his greenhouse and gave me the glass.
Oh, cool. Okay. And what kind of orchids did you have in the very beginning? Were they callias or were you growing something else?
Jim gave me some callias.
Okay. And so you started out with callias just because that's what he gave you or because you liked them?
Well, that's what I thought was orchids.
Oh, right. You didn't know about all the other kinds.
Nobody did.
Okay. When did people start discovering all the other species?
Well, they'd already known the hobbyists.
Right.
But not the public.
Not in general, right. So what kind of problems did you have with growing them in the greenhouse? I imagine you didn't know everything you needed to know when you started.
Yeah, but everything sort of grew and bloomed. That's how I got hooked.
Oh, okay. And were you growing them in fir bark right away?
Yeah.
So you knew about that?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And okay, so then what made you think about making crosses?
Well, that's what was happening then. Everybody was, all the big orchid people were making crosses and, widening the circle of available flowers and colors and shapes and sizes and everything.
How did you know that's what people were doing? Were you going to meetings or?
No, I got some catalogs.
Uh-huh.
I knew there was a place called Armacost and Royston that was
Uh-huh.
in L.A. at the time.
Uh-huh. And so you went there?
Yeah, and then there was another place that was right near where we lived, up on Mulholland,
Uh-huh.
called Phil Ilsley's, and I went there.
Uh-huh.
And they were, Armacost at that point was the leading orchid hybridizer.
Okay. So you saw that they had these crosses there?
Yeah, B.O. Bracey was making all these crosses.
Uh-huh. I think I've heard that name. You must have mentioned it to me.
He's an Englishman.
Oh, okay. So then what year do you think you probably made your first cross?
About 1956 or 7.
Uh-huh. And how did you actually find out how to do the mechanics of making the cross?
Well, Phil Ilsley showed me, the other guy that I bought from.
Uh-huh. The one on Mulholland.
Yeah.
So I thought I could take some pictures of you actually making a cross. Taking the pollen out and doing the thing with it. When you take your toothpick, that's what you use, right? You take the pollen out of one.
Yeah.
And you're putting it on the sticky part. What are you putting it on in the other orchid?
I think it's called the stigmatic surface.
Okay.
But you should check that.
Yeah, okay. And then if it takes, then it makes a seed pod, right?
Right.
Okay, and about how long does it take from the time that you actually do the pollination to the point where you realize that it's taken?
Well, it depends on what you're making crosses of.
Okay. Like, for example?
Well, the classic Cattleyas took about 9 months.
You're kidding. You didn't see that you were getting a seed pod for 9 months?
Oh, yeah, you saw the seed pod, but you had to leave it on there.
Oh, that's what I was asking, is how long would it take before you even knew if it took?
Oh, a couple of weeks.
Oh, okay. And probably what percentage of them took and what percentage don't?
Well, in the early days, nearly all of them took.
How come that's changed?
Because crosses got a lot more complicated.
Oh, because you're crossing things that have already been crossed now.
We're crossing things that are quite far apart genetically.
Oh, okay. Crossing species and things like that?
No. Species are the easiest crosses to make.
No, that's not what I meant. I meant, you said they're far apart genetically, so I was asking, does that mean you're making crosses out of things that are already combinations of different species together?
Genera, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, you call that genera then, okay.
Genera is a group. Species are the individuals.
Okay, so like, is Cattleya a genera or a species?
Both.
That's confusing.
Well, there's a whole group called the Cattleya.
Okay.
Science,
Okay.
and that's the genera. Although actually they don't. The scientific name is not Cattleya. I can't remember what it is.
Okay, so like, what's Brassiocattleya or Bracciolalia cattleya or whatever it is? What's that?
Well, that's 3 genera.
Oh, okay, that's 3 genera together then. Bracciolalia and Cattleya.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you said it could take up to like 9 months to make a seed pod on a Cattleya. What other, like, for example, Oncidium, how long does that one take?
Well, all of them. I mean, some Cattleyas can make them in 3 months.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it depends on the plant.
Oh, how healthy it is, or?
No, the size and what it is.
Okay. So it's just really variable.
Small plants generally make quicker seed pods.
Okay. And then and then what you would do is you'd take the seed pod to a lab, and they'd take the seed out and put it in a growing medium in a sterile environment inside a flask. Is that right?
Yeah.
What's the growing medium made out of?
The name of that stuff. God, I can't think of the name now. It's like gelatin.
Yeah, it looks like gelatin. Brown gelatin.
It's a sugar solution.
Okay. Well, we can look that up later. It's not a big deal. And then when...
Agar.
Agar. Oh, okay. That sounds familiar, actually, for some reason. Okay, and then you take the baby. How long does it take you? How long do they usually have to stay in the flask before they're ready to plant into a flat?
Well, usually they're replanted once from one flask to another flask.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. And that would happen at the lab, I assume, so it would stay sterile? Okay. Okay.
That happens because when they put seed in a glass bottle, they can have up to 1 million seeds.
Right. So it makes a whole lot of plants.
It makes grass.
Right.
So then they take a bunch of them out and plant them like 30 to a flask.
Okay. That makes sense. And then, and then when you... So anyway, how long does that usually take from the time you give them?
Well, it's just like all the other things. It depends on the crosses. Some
Okay.
are really fast growing.
Okay, so what's on the fast-growing end? About how long is that?
Well, like Miltonias,
Mm-hmm.
Miltoniopsis,
Uh-huh.
they're, you can reflask them after about 3 months,
Okay.
and then you can take them out after less than a year.
Okay. 3 months. Okay. And then on the long end, that's the short end.
Well, long end, it can take forever.
Well, define forever.
Well, things like Taffeopetalum rothschildianum
Uh-huh.
probably takes a year, and then you reflask it for another year.
Oh my goodness.
And then it's another 15 years before it blooms.
You're kidding. Why does anybody bother? That's a lifetime. That's a lifetime project.
Yeah, the guy that first grew a lot of them made a lot of money.
Yeah, I'll bet. Okay, so let's see. Okay, and then after you get it, and when they're ready to come out of the flask, then you put them in a flat. Is that right?
And I put them in what?
A flat?
No, I put them in community pots. Nurseries sometimes put them in flats.
Oh, okay.
But that's too many plants for a hobbyist.
Oh, okay. So
Community pots will probably have about 25 plants
in one pot?
in one pot.
And you do that because a lot of them won't survive, or
No,
just because they're...
put them close together and little.
And about what size pot is that?
3 1/4 inch.
Really? I didn't realize that you would do that many. Okay. And then you have to, and when they start growing, you just put them in, separate them and put them in bigger pots.
Yeah.
But about what percentage do you think survive of the ones that you take out of the flask to the point where you...
Well, there's an enormous difference.
Uh-huh.
I mean, sometimes you'll lose them all.
Uh-huh.
And other times they'll all grow.
Uh-huh. Huh, okay. So you just don't know.
Really know.
Okay.
Sometimes it's the conditions that, like if the weather turns real damp and they all rot. Or
Oh, all right.
different things can happen, Or
Sure.
there can be a particularly good growing cross.
Uh-huh. Okay. And then I know my recollection, okay, you said 25 years to bloom for that path. My recollection is it's something like 7 years for some of the cattleyas, is that right?
Yeah.
And then, so what are the other variations? Like, for example, again, using an Oncidium cross, about how long would you expect from the time that you take it out of the flask and put it in a community pot to the time it would actually bloom? Big variation again?
2 years for Miltoniopsis.
Oh, so those are pretty short then.
Yeah, and also for Odonts.
Okay. Is that why you started growing them later? Because you could get it quicker?
Well, no, they were just something different I got interested in.
Okay. Okay, when you were making, I guess overall, what visual properties of the orchids do you consider in deciding what to cross? I guess there's size, how big the flower is. There's color. There's shape. Hardiness. What else?
Well, there's blooming time.
Right, okay. How long the flowers last?
And the manner that they grow and how far apart the bulbs are and all that sort of thing.
And I guess on some of them it's how many you get, right? Because...
How many flowers
Yeah.
you get.
Yeah, uh-huh. Okay.
And just numberless things.
Well, I'm just trying to kind of get some of them. So you want, I remember being flat's kind of a good thing on a cattleya. So it lays flat. It's not all curled up.
Flat and
Uh-huh.
wide petals and sepals.
Okay. And then the lip, what's a good quality on a lip?
Well, for a cattleya, it's a full round lip.
Uh-huh. Just like people. And when you were doing yours, what were you going for in terms of color?
Well, when I first started, I was just growing for big orchids.
You-
Early on, I got interested in reds because there was only like 3 reds in existence.
Uh-huh. Is that Raja's Ruby?
Cattleyas.
Is Raja's Ruby one of those?
No, Don Herman made that.
Oh, okay. But that is a red cattleya, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
one that we made early on. I made Jerry's red,
Uh-huh.
and he made Roger's ruby,
Uh-huh.
which Stuart's marketed. That's why it got so popular.
Okay. That's probably why I recognize
And there was Frank Fordyce made Madge Fordyce.
Uh-huh.
There was 3 or 4 of us that were breeding the reds.
Uh-huh.
They came right along.
Uh-huh.
I got the first stud plants from Armacost and Ilford.
Uh-huh. And when did you start getting interested in blue, going for blue?
Well, that was much later. That's the last color that there. We still don't have really great blues.
Uh-huh.
So that's something that's still worth working on.
Uh-huh. But you've done a lot of yellows and greens too, haven't you?
Yeah, I did a lot of the early greens and yellows both.
Uh-huh. What's that one that, I think Mom did a painting of it. There's a green that's really, there's a green that I remember, I think Mom did a painting of it that I always really liked. Can't remember the name of it.
A green?
Yeah. Might have had some white on the lip. Can't remember. Okay.
I didn't make Ports of Paradise. Stewart's made that.
That's not the one I'm thinking of.
I made a whole bunch of greens.
What's coming to my mind is Philadelphia, but I know that's not the name. I think it starts with a P. Anyway, we'll think of it. Okay, so when you were doing your early crosses, were you also considering genetic properties?
Yeah.
So what properties were you looking at, thinking of?
Well, early on, we were just figuring out about tetraploids.
Okay, and remind me what a tetraploid is?
Well, there's a normal number of chromosomes
Uh-huh.
in a plant.
Uh-huh.
The normal number is called a diploid.
So that's 2 already.
Well, that means it gets half its...
Oh, from each parent.
Yeah.
Okay. And then what would a tetraploid be?
Twice the normal number.
Okay, so it's getting 2 from each parent then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that happens by... You see, when the orchids breed,
Mm-hmm.
when they get fertilized, they have a full set of genes on each side. So that's, say, 40 genes on each, 40 chromosomes on each side.
Okay.
But what happens is each chromosome finds a mate from the other side.
Okay.
It's the same kind of a chromosome, controls the same sort of thing.
Uh-huh.
And they go together.
And does that still remain 1 chromosome then?
That becomes 1 chromosome.
Okay. But then if there's not a mate to it, it adds a new one.
Well, then it's an uneven number, yeah.
Right.
Which can be a lot of trouble.
What happens then?
Well, sometimes good things happen, but a lot of the time you get what we call aneuploids.
What does that mean?
Well, it's an uneven number of chromosomes, and they don't grow well, and they don't breed.
Okay.
Bad stuff.
Okay. So that's not a good thing then. Okay. Okay, so besides the visual properties we talked about and the genetic properties, I guess you would consider whether it's a hardy grower, how well it grows.
Yeah.
What other factors would you consider when deciding whether to make a cross with something?
Well, if you want a time for it to bloom, you think of that.
A time of year?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. A scent?
Huh?
A scent, smell? You ever consider that?
Yes, that's another thing. All those things are...
Okay.
Everything that's in the orchid is something you can consider.
Uh-huh. I'm just trying to think of all of them. There's a lot of them.
Well, of course, the shape of things and the colors.
Right.
And the sizes right now are doing a lot of downsizing.
Really, people like smaller ones now.
So they can put more in a greenhouse.
Going for quantity. Okay. I meant to look up before you called, and I forgot, on awards. Did you get any awards on plants that you crossed when you were still living in San Pedro, or in Hollywood, or before Hollywood?
I don't think so.
Okay. So that was probably not till the San Pedro period that started.
Yeah, it was.
Did you go to any orchid shows in those early years?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Local shows? Did you go travel to other shows, other places?
Just local ones.
Local shows, Was Jim still into it at that point? Were you guys doing anything together, or had you kind of gone off on your own by then?
I'd gone off on my own.
Yeah.
The same thing was with skating, you know, we were together for about 6 months, and then I just got into it too deep.
He went off and did something else, and you stayed with it.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's kind of all the questions I had. So for the early years. So I think what I'd like to do is transcribe that onto the computer, and it'll generate more questions, I'm sure. And then either we'll rehash that part. You know, I'll send it to you, and we can come up with new questions for that, or corrections. I'm sure you'll have lots of corrections for me.
There was one question you sort of skirted.
Okay, what's that?
How I came to make my first cross.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Well, I was getting orchids, and there was all these new things coming out all the time.
From the growers you were going to?
Yeah. I realized they were making crosses. And that was creative, which I am, I guess. So I got real interested in being creative. And there was lots of things to improve. You know, at first I just made parallel crosses to what everybody else was doing. And then after the first few,
you start coming up with your own ideas.
Well, right away I did. There was an idea that if you cross well, it wasn't an idea, it's true. In Cattleyas, if you take a purple and you cross certain types of yellows with it, it gets much darker purple.
That's interesting.
And so that's how I made BLC Luella Rehfield. I made one of those kind of.
Does that one have a yellow lip, or does that have a purple lip?
Purple lip.
Okay, because some of them then come out with a yellow lip, right?
Yeah.
I've seen those. Okay. Interesting. That would have never occurred to me that would happen.
Well, all kinds of things like that. You know, I like the first red cross that I made was a red by a purple.
And it came out red?
Yeah.
Well, what made you think that those things would happen?
Well, mixing colors.
Yeah, but red and purple, to me, would just make a red or purple. I mean, it would...
It makes more purple.
Yeah, but you said it came out red.
Well, some of them did.
Oh, okay. But I guess, is that like dominant, like eye color? A dominant, what do you call it, trait?
Yeah.
Okay, so is red a dominant color trait?
Not generally.
Oh, really? Oh, but it was in that case sometimes.
Well, yeah, there was a lot of mixing of yellows and purples to make reds, too.
No, that doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Well, you can do that. That's how you make red.
Okay, but I'm talking about like in paint, or in...
I'm talking about.
Yeah. But I mean, I think if you mixed yellow paint and purple paint, I'd think it would come out brown or something.
No, it comes out...
Because red's a primary color in paint. But I don't know about light. And we might be talking about light. I'll have to check and see how light comes out. If you put, you know, like a purple filter and a yellow filter, what does it come out like? I don't know. Light's real different that way. So what colors tend to be dominant?
Well, purple's the most dominant color for Cattleyas.
Uh-huh.
Practically everything is recessive purple.
Okay. Any other sort of obvious dominant traits?
Well, yeah, like there's a kind of lip called a spade lip.
What's that?
Well, it's not a big round one. It's sort of, they call it an isthmus lip also.
Looks like a peninsula kind of thing?
Yeah.
Longer and narrower.
And it comes out at the bottom wider.
Okay. Oh, I know what you're talking about, yeah. And
those are it's an undesirable characteristic that goes on forever.
Okay, so you have to.
It's really hard to get rid of.
So you have to try to breed around it. Okay.
And of course, there was a lot of problems. For instance, there was a lot of deformity in flowers.
Uh-huh.
And of course, a flower that's deformed isn't any good.
Yeah, so you just throw away those plants, or what do you do with them?
Oh, that's what we had to do, yeah.
Yeah.
And we made a lot of crosses where the first time they bloomed, they were gorgeous.
Uh-huh.
And then from then on, every time they bloomed, they were deformed.
Oh, man, that had to be heartbreaking.
It was.
Huh.
And we used a few of those to breed on with.
Really? To see what would happen?
Well, because they were such good things.
Uh-huh. And how did that go?
Well, we finally found out if you bred them with brassavolas, you could lose a lot of the deformity.
Oh, really? Is that because brassavola tends not to have deformities, or what?
Well, it's an interesting thing. It's a species that promotes vigor in its offspring.
Mm-hmm.
And it has, I don't know, it's just kind of dominant about a lot of things.
Uh-huh. That's interesting. So who found that out? I mean, people just tried it and it just worked? I mean,
I don't know who the person was.
But someone noticed it was a really vigorous grower and they thought, oh, well, maybe we could get rid of some of these other problems with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Neat. Okay.
Usually the first crosses were made just to see what would happen.
Sure. That's a long time to wait to see what would happen.
Well, you know, I mean, when they first started crossing with Brassavola digbyana, I doubt if they had any particular thing in mind.
Uh-huh.
That was 100 years ago.
Okay. Was that in England when they first started doing all these crosses?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay. Anything else you can think of to add to the stuff we talked about today?
I'm tired.
Yeah, I figured you would be. Okay. Well, was that hard, though? I mean, was that okay?
Well, that was easy.
I figured it would be, yeah. This is a lot easier than making you write it out.
Yeah.
And as you see, you know, you ask one question and it always leads to other stuff. Okay, well, I'll work with this and see what we think the next thing to do is.
Okay.
You get some rest. And I'll talk to you again.
You have a good day.
Thanks, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, poor Stan, though. You know, it's his birthday, and he had to go to work, and he had to work last night till 2:30 in the morning, then he had to go to work today.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, well, at least he gets the weekend after this. Okay, well, you take care of yourself.
Okie doke.
And I'll talk to you again soon.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.